Well, hi, good morning, and thanks for joining me in the shop here. I'm in a spot I'm usually not in with radios. What's happened here is I've replaced the capacitors and done the basic work, checked the tubes, all that kind of stuff. And I have a radio in front of me that doesn't seem to operate properly. This is an unusual result. Usually, if you carefully work your way through all the capacitors and that, you end up with a working radio, or at least working to a fair degree. It may still require some tune-up and things like that. There might be the odd resistor still causing problems. This radio really is not working well at all. So I didn't play it a lot at the end of the last video, just enough to realize no, it's not ready. Not ready for alignment. It's certainly not ready for its cabinet, that's for sure. So a couple thoughts on that. One is I had the antenna connected via long clip leads. That may not have been a good idea. Secondly, underneath this radio was a mysterious 100 microfarad capacitor connected in a place that I could only conclude was an attempt, a failed attempt to put in a bypass capacitor. And that capacitor I've removed since it's not called for on the schematic. And the radio's oscillating and howling, and it sounds like it has feedback in it. That capacitor could have been the one that was snuffing out the feedback. So it's just possible somebody else faced exactly the same situation and figured out to put that big fat capacitor in there, which I kind of don't like that story at all. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to correct the antenna connection. Instead of using clip leads, I'm going to solder it back on the proper wires and eliminate that as a problem, a possible problem, having these wires out here. After that, I don't know. I guess you could do some signal tracing, but sometimes when you have these howlings, they're all over the radio, getting into all the circuits, so to speak. But I'm not sure what to do next after that. So let's do the first thing. At least I know enough to do that. And of course, there's always a possibility, a good possibility, I've made an error when I put the capacitors in. Somehow I messed up. Done that before. And I had a radio that I called the Howler. It's a small radio I repaired, and I shotgunned the capacitor, something I never do, and that's probably the last time I've ever done that. What I mean by that is I just changed all the capacitors without testing the radio. When I turned the radio on, all it did was howl. Just howled. Screamer. Howler, Screamer, I can't remember what nickname I gave it. I took a couple of runs of that radio. I had it for a couple of years. Well, I still have it. Occasionally I would get up the nerve and bring it in here and try to sort it out. I did eventually sort it out, and it was a mistake. I put a capacitor in the wrong place, and that's why the howling was happening. But, you know, it's not easy to find your own mistakes. Then you have to admit to them too. That's tough. Okay, little short wires. This one's ridiculously short. That's how it was. Oh boy. Oh, that's why this is tied on here with these pieces of wire. Why don't we change this to some unimportant plastic ties instead of these wires, which just, you know, wrapping a wire around the antenna, is that going to help it? Probably not. This is tied with a regular knot. So we'll do this again, only we'll do it with some couple of these guys here. Now, I'm not suggesting this was causing the howling. No. I just noticed this now and just think it might be a little bit better for the radio to just not have those wires wrapped around it. I don't think I'm going to get this very tight. Ooh, this isn't going to work out. Yeah, this isn't going to clamp down on it unless I put something in there like that. It's another good plan gone down the drain. I really need something like string in there. Now it's holding it. Nothing's holding it. Or glue. glue would be the thing. Okay, what else do I have to glue? Is there something else? There is something else I have to glue. I have to glue this knob back together. That's right. Okay, so I'm going to glue the antenna on. I'm going to glue this knob thing back together here. At the same time, once I have the glue out, is that just dirt? Ugh. No, I think that's glue. Filthy. Okay. Let me fix those two simple things up and then we'll get back to working on the radio. Okay, after an awfully long struggle soldering these wires on, boy oh boy, I've got it on. So I got the antenna connected properly. I glued it back. Look at the glue I used. Shoe glue. Jolly Roger. Yes, this glue is actually meant for gluing shoes, but it's really, really handy stuff. So, okay. Now, so my plan is just to turn on the radio, operate it, discover that hooking the antenna up correctly didn't make any difference in terms of the problem I'm kind of facing here, and we'll go from there. That would be the idea. Good. So the radio is switched on. Just keep our eye on those lights again. And it's plugged in. Fire on. There we go. Tiny little glow in there. So, as I said, I expect this radio is just going to howl along. But we will see. And then I'm going to have to think hard about what that capacitor, that 100 microfarad capacitor, might have been doing that was benefiting this radio. Boy, that's not very reassuring, is it? What is going on in this radio? It's full of howls. Yeah. I see I've kind of bent this guy up too. Leave him till later. Well, okay, so what has happened here? Clearly has nothing to do with the antenna. So what has happened here probably is I made a mistake in installing one of those capacitors. The mistake could be I put it on the wrong terminal, or maybe the solder connection didn't take, maybe it's a cold solder joint, maybe. Where do you go from here with a radio doing this kind of thing? We can be pretty sure it's coming out of the radio. Oh, well, we can find out. I'm just going to flip it to phono. Here. Get the open phono hum. And none of that, no craziness, of course. And the tuning can't affect it on phono. There's a radio station there. What are the chances this is just an alignment issue and I should really do the alignment next? Wow, I just don't think this can be an alignment issue. Well, let's do this. We'll do a quick sensitivity study here. I'm going to fool with one of these. Oh my God, what now? Someone with a loose base. What is going on in this radio? Get it right on my get it solid here so I can push on these things a little more. Now, gotta watch your hands here. Okay, we're okay with this. She is in a bad way. Kind of started with this thing, didn't it? When I'm wiggling the tube here, and making the pins wiggle underneath, I'm stressing all the connections that are related to that tube. If there's anything bad or cold, hopefully it would show up. Definitely not showing up. I've got the antenna connected. I can't flip the radio right over anymore like I could. Well, maybe there's a way to get away with that. And why would I even do that? Because I'm going to signal trace. Why would I bother signal tracing? What do I think I'm going to find with that? So this sound is certainly coming out of the radio. It's going into the volume control. I think I'm going to fiddle with the alignment issue here. As doubtful as I am that that's going to have any benefit, it's like the easiest thing to try next. And least problematic here. I'm trying to get a tool into my hands here. Oh my gosh. There. These are really terrible because they're so flimsy. Goes right in. So the objective here is a slight turn to see what happens. Oh, smokes. Whoa! That was an exciting moment there. What happened? What happened there? Let me turn this down so we're not... I literally jumped back 3 steps there. Fixed it. Radio's fixed. What in heaven's name is that? Like, you just never know. You just never know where the problems are going to come from. What is that exactly? I just pushed on the slug. Why would that bring everything back to life? That's really unnerving because whatever it was can happen again. And go to fiddle with that, I may bring back the problem. Whatever the problem was. What problem could that be? Could be when I push on the slug, I'm actually pushing on the entire form and structure in there, and could be connections underneath in the bottom of the radio. Could be a connection I recently made to underneath here. We'll look for that. Could be a connection inside of the very fine wires that are in here has failed or is failing. Let's go on number 1. Maybe I soldered something to the bottom here and didn't do a good job of it. There we are. So glued together. Flip it up this way. Let's pull the plug right out. Okay, I just untangle a few things here. Take off the speaker connection. Okay, so where'd that thing go? So the thing I pushed on is this one here. I don't see any extra connections. I didn't make any connections to it. Maybe indirectly. Well, maybe there's something there I could see. I have a much better chance of poking at this. Sticking my finger in there, maybe not the wisest move. Just looking at some of the soldering I did in the vicinity here. Checked all these parts quite carefully, but something's not right. Didn't check any of this. So I need the radio on to do this, to try to find a bad connection, if there is one. Some kind of short circuit I was clearing. Let me take a closer look at that with a close-up camera. See, maybe we'll see something there. Okay, she's zoomed up pretty good. Okay, so this is the one we're looking at. All seems pretty solid. So see, right down at the base of that connection, you can see a little bit of green in here. Just a wee bit of green. So copper oxide is conductive. That's not oxide though. Copper oxide's brown. That's copper sulfate or copper something else. It's not copper oxide. But I believe it's all conductive. Somewhat conductive. Well, I don't see anything in particular here. I don't know where the wires go. So you can wiggle at the end of this wire, and it's the other end where action's happening. The other end. So there's a connection I made. You can see the gray wire. And maybe I weakened this red wire. Let's see if I can get a grip on it here. So I'm looking in my my TV. This is it here. Now, chances are, like this is a factory-made connection. Chances are the wire is looped around the terminal before soldering. It just really cannot come loose. Well, I suppose it could turn into a cold solder joint. We could poke at that to find it. Solid. I think we're going to have to do some poking. Poking has worked a lot for me. Well, okay, let's set up for some poking. Yes, I joked that my poking sticks are some of the most powerful tools I have in here. I'm not joking, actually. Okay, down, power on. Turn up a little bit. Find my official poking stick. Oh no, what am I going to do if I can't find my official poking stick? I'll have to resort to an untested stick. A stick with no track record. There's two kinds of sticks to strike your radio. There's a low mass stick like this, and a higher mass stick, which I'm looking for. It's still quite light though. The low mass stick gives you a chance to make very sharp mechanical shocks into very small areas of the radio. This is the stick technique. Now we shouldn't start yet. Hey, this guy's quiet. Oh, no wonder he's quiet. Safety first. Now I have a chance to look for that stick somewhere. You see, I put it in a special place. Here it is. My special wooden stick, my plastic stick, thin sticks. This is the guy who's going to do it though. So look at that, there's that motorboating too. Son of a gun. You gotta wonder about that big capacitor. Now let's poke in here and get something. We'll use that. Nothing. Oop, there's something there. I gotta put my hand on the radio. So it's a hair trigger from above. Let's try the hair trigger from above thing again. Yeah, I'm fiddling with the wrong can. I'm fiddling with this one. It's this one up here. Good. It's the wrong can. I think it's a wrong can. So this is hooked up right into this switch here. Lots of terminals on it. There's a connection I made right here. Nope. Okay. Take the official stick now. Put my hand on it. Now we have to ask ourselves, what is going on here? So my guess is it's the very fine coil wire that's probably soldered to this terminal right down at the base here. Typically when they make these, they bring the coil wires down and then they wrap them around these terminals high up close to the base, and then you can make subsequent connections farther away on the terminal towards the end, so you don't disturb the factory made, they're all factory made, aren't they, the assembly made connections that are done up in here. Now it's possible it's this end of the wire though. Okay. So radio in working state, I think it is. No. Barely touched it. So the solution for this is, first attempt solution is resoldering. I just melt all the solder and resolder it and hope to heck it grabs the wire, because chances are what's happened is, let me make something here. There we are. Okay, so you pretend that's the terminal and this is the wire from the little coil. And when they make it right, they wrap the wire around a couple times, probably, maybe quite a few times, down low on the terminal, and then they solder it, and then the wire's coming off the solder right here, of course, and heading back to the coil. Right here is where they're likely to break, right there, from corrosion, expansion, contraction, I suppose, a little bit. Whatever it is that works these things, that's where it's likely to break. That's a really unfortunate spot, because if it does, this part of the wire is hidden down inside the can. I mean, you can't get at it, right? So the reason I'm going over this, I'm reviewing it in my own head and getting ready to take some kind of action. My action could just make the situation worse, for sure. And where is the situation right now? The situation is actually, I think it's working. I'm going to come up from below. Is it the connection or is it something inside? Oh, I just touched this. That's the clamping bracket there. Maybe I haven't got this assessed right. That's curious. I put my hand on the chassis and you can't really hear the effect anymore. What's that saying? The chassis drain not really draining the chassis? Get this result from touching the chassis, and the result we get from touching B minus. Now I gotta find it safely here. A safe place to touch it. There really is no safe place to touch B minus. Right here. Seems odd to me that the frequency of the tone we're hearing would change touching B minus. What's this adding up to? It's adding up to that great big 100 microfarad capacitor was in there for a good reason. There really isn't one in here, or have I just overlooked something terribly obvious on this schematic showing where you would stick a great big 100? Well, you know, it was hooked up to the cathode of the output tube. Pin 8 shown as 3 here. Right, it's a 50L6, but a 50L6, can you not swap a 50 and a 35? Are they not the same tube inside? Just with a different heater? I think they are. I don't know that they are. Somebody put a 50 in here and this radio worked afterwards, but then there was the 100. Stick another 100 in there and see what happens. That's just too loopy for me. I need a little more evidence in order to do that. And I tried to find that 100 capacitor in my garbage can this morning, and I could not find it. I don't know what I did with it. So I remember it tested good. Oh, what to do, what to do, what to do. I'm stumped, so I'm going to stop for a little while till a good idea comes around. Hey, here's a good idea. Look in the bucket of all the capacitors and find the one you're talking about. It's not in the garbage yet. There's a good idea. Put it right back in there in the same place it was, which would take some doing now. Positive was on the cathode of the output tube, and the negative was apparently incorrectly connected to this terminal here. Actually there, so I remember where it was. I can clip this in. I could solder one end in and then just clip the other as a switch. It just seems crazy to me. But I don't know what else to try. So let's try that. I'll get that set up. Okay, ready for the experiment here. Radio's not on yet. I've got the capacitor soldered in at the top where it was. And then I can make contact here just by grabbing this end of it and going like that. And that'll return it to the same position it was in originally. And we'll find out what the heck this does. I mean, somebody took the time to put this in and then decided to leave it in afterwards. So there's got to be some sense to it. Even if I don't, even if I'm senseless about it. Okay, here we go. Radio's basically the same as it was. Antenna connections have held in. Speaker is connected. Radio should be coming on. this seems to affect it. Really? Okay, we're going to give this a try. I really have no idea what's going to happen. So we're just going to tap it. There may be a charge up period, maybe a big thump when I do this. Maybe my soldering iron will beep at us while I do it, or just hit the chassis with it. Well, sounds like a whole lot of nothing to me. Wait a minute. I'm not touching anything with it. So I'm basically wiggling this tube up here, output tube. I'd say it has an effect of nothing myself. Is this thing switched on radio? It must be. It must be switched on radio. Let go, don't fall into the radio. Jeez, there's just a lot of wonkiness in here. It seems to be all related to the chassis and what is making contact with it. How come the chassis would be that noisy? Now it's gone all quiet just from me jabbing at it. It's a stick job. That's right, that's the one that was... No. No, it's this one up here that was acting up. Everything is acting up. That's the whole radio shaking. And that's how you fix a radio. There's a loose connection in here, come on. Tubes. This first tube. Looking at my soldering job down here. We got 4 or 5 things that are acting up at once here, which I doubt. Okay, we're going for this. Thank you. We're going for the sensitive IF can. Look at that one? No, it's this one up here. And look at that. And back on. Switch not working well. Whew, seems pretty good. Did I just fix it? That doesn't sound so bad. There's motorboating. But that could be because of bad alignment, I think. Okay, so I'm a little lost as to what to do about what may not even be a problem anymore. So I got off on this whole journey just now because I tapped the slug in one of the IF cans and the radio went wild. So I haven't really found out what it is that's doing that, but the maximum sensitivity was touching that slug with this. So you can imagine that inside the IF, we don't even have to imagine. I have one here somewhere. Where have I got it? I'll get my hands on it quick here. And I cannot. So you can imagine that story I told about where the wire's breaking right at the edge. Well, that takes place in the coil too. Like every one of these coils has a wire coming out of the coil heading to the terminal. Now these ones are all waxed up, and that's why they're waxed up, to try to freeze everything absolutely in there. And sometimes these things break there. You kind of wonder though, inside of a can like that, and why are we not hearing anything? Let us bump the can again. Oh boy. When I put my hand on this, it doesn't have the effect. It doesn't have the effect now anyway. Okay. Yeah, it's still doing something. This one goes right in to the slug. This one, the slug looks funny. The slug looks funny. Is the slug broken off? Am I looking at a fractured slug here? Not likely we can see much in there. Not really sure what we're seeing there. It's odd looking. I'm looking right through it. So you're looking right through to the bottom of my hand in the background here. You're looking through two slugs. By the way, it is possible to, in this arrangement, because the slugs are hollow, to pass the tool down through the top slug into the lower slug. And you can work both the top and bottom slug from the top here. Probably the intention. Now look, that's clear as can be. This one, darkness. What's happened? So I'm looking for the, there should be a tube, like a fiber tube, and you can't really see it in here either. Well, there's the edge of it. So there's the edge of the fiber tube. Whoops, what's the camera? I think the camera shadow that's causing it. So we can, tricky business, but I saw it. That's either the edge of the, or down, that's down a little ways into the fiber tube. Look here, there's something in the way. Oh, we're gonna have to look inside that can. I'm afraid that's where we're at now. That's where we're at now. We must go in the can. I don't like it. One of the things that can ruin these radios are ruined coils. Ruined coils in here, and I'll ruin coils here. It ruined the whole radio. So I don't like this journey. This is not a good thing, but not to give up too quick. Now let's see if I can just get this out of here easily enough. Just going to take the can off the top. Ouch, hot tube. I'm going to try to pull the clip out from underneath. It's going to fall out anyway. It's just like this. It should fall out, but I get a piece of it. So I think one side is still gripping up here. Yeah. You know, it's not going to come out. There's wires blocking it, come to think of it. So it's not coming out. That's okay. I can still get this off. I bet you there may be bent tabs. No, there shouldn't be any bent tabs. There shouldn't be any bent tabs. It should be coming off. It should come off. Maybe it's ready to come off and I'm just too chicken to pull it. Okay, so what's happening here? So let's look and see what the whole transformer trying to come out. Yes, it is. So probably the metal can has been bent down over the plastic here and probably done underneath the bracket, which I cannot remove because wires are in the way. So why not move those wires out of the way? It's just one wire. Okay, because you don't want to move wires, but I'm moving it. Okay, that one's out of the way, and this one just has to bend up a little bit. Just a little bit. I think I can worm that thing out of there now. Get the bracket to come out. Here it comes. Can't be holding the can on anymore. Come on, you can come out. It's like pulling a fish hook. It's got all kinds of little thingies on it. There's one side. There's the other side. There it comes. I've been watching some interesting videos from a guy called Lock-Picking Lawyer. Type that into YouTube. Lock-Picking Lawyer. And he picks locks. It's an eye-opener. Just thought I'd throw that out, you know. So the can cannot, so the can, yeah, so there's the, I can actually see the bending tabs. They do not look bent. They do not look like the can is gripped. The can will grip onto the base of the transformer form. It's pulling the whole thing out. Oh, I can see them from here. They're definitely, you can see they're bent. They're bent. They're bent. They're bent. They're bent. Why do they not look bent down here? So if you can't get the can to slide off the base, then I have to desolder all these, extract the whole shebang, and I probably will anyway. You know, if I'm going to work on this thing, it probably has to come right out. So that is a miserable piece of work to do. There's 3 wires on this terminal. There's 3 or 4 on that terminal, and 1 on here and 1 on there. Oh my God. All of it hard to access when it's time to put it back together. Oh my. And I don't even know what I'm actually chasing down here. We got to get the can off and leave the coil in place. It's got to be done. So the can, let me show you what I'm talking about here. do that, I'll discover that I haven't got the picture right. So certainly there should be, like, there's a missing piece of metal right at the bottom. It's bent. There'd be one on the other side. The other side would be easier to access, except for the antenna I took the time to put on. But I did extend the wires a little bit. Let's look on this one. So there again is the tab. So I'm going to have to reach up from underneath, somehow bend out that tab, or apply so much force on the can relative to the base that the can bends itself on the way out. Just force it out. This is just aluminum. It's not terribly strong. The last thing I want to do, though, is wreck this thing. And there's a high potential for that. The wreckage to happen. So pulling it right off means you have to hold the base in place. It's up here. Don't get confused and start working on the wrong one, Jim. Push me. Eventually get around to desoldering the wrong one. You have to hold the base firmly while tugging that thing off, and I don't think that just doesn't sound all that good. What about inch by, or millimeter by millimeter, or micron by micron? What if I just keep wiggling the thing until it slowly bends those tabs out? You know what, they do not, it just doesn't look right under here. It just doesn't look like bent tabs from underneath. Maybe they just dimpled them in like they did with that vacuum tube. And I can undimple them. Not sure what I'm bending. Doesn't look right. Okay, so how much play is there between the metal can? This thing should be thoroughly dead now. Plug is out. Everybody's safe. I'm really going to grab on in here. And I want to feel the relative movement of the base and the can on top. It's a little bit. Not much. As I said before, I have to desolder these to do the work. Oh my gosh. This is a problem here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my video here to snap a couple pictures. I don't think it's apparent on the video what I'm doing when I do that. So, okay, I think that's a pretty good shot. I'll snap a picture. There it is. And another entire angle here on this. Kind of looking down from up here. Something like that. Okay, snap a picture. That's done. Now, seeing anything interesting in this picture? So one of those wires looks like it has a cold solder joint on it. That's this one here. Someone's knocking at my door. Okay, let's stop for a bit. Well, maybe I shouldn't have broken one of my rules here when I was replacing these capacitors. I think there's more out of sorts up here. So this blue guy didn't do anything in our test, and I'm still convinced it's got no business being where it is. I'm just going to cut it off here. And that leaves this yellow one. What's this yellow one doing there? So this yellow one is connected to pin 3. Pin 3 is the cathode, right up in here, which I'm going to verify in a moment. Comes around to pin 8. Pin 8 is, no wait a minute, pin, yeah, see I'm already turned around. It's because of that crazy schematic keeps calling 2 pins 3. Calls pin 8 3. So pin 8 is this guy. So this capacitor is installed between 3 and 8. And 8 is the cathode from which a resistor runs down to B minus. And that's this little resistor, and this point is B minus right here. What's that capacitor doing there? It does not appear in the schematic. Not that way. There is a capacitor. It's across the windings here. In effect, it goes from B minus to the plate. So here's one. Pin 3 is the plate. So this capacitor is on the plate, but the other side is on the cathode. Well, the cathode is on this resistor. So it really should be on the, it should be really connected here. Then we would have it to B minus. And is B minus exactly the same? Just looking for where it says right there, B minus. So there we are. So, and just that capacitor's in the wrong spot. Now either I did that by accident or I just followed the last guy. I was just following, I wasn't really following the last guy. I was following the original capacitors. I probably boot this up. So my thinking is I got to swing this little capacitor up onto this terminal, and maybe that's going to make the radio work better. I don't know. As usual, when you get to these kinds of situations, you really are just loaded with self-doubt. But, you know, I'll try it. I'll check it out very carefully again. If it still says the same story, I will move it. We'll see what happens. Okay, I think we're ready for another test now. I've moved the capacitor over. I've double checked a couple times on the schematic. I don't know how I got it in the wrong place, but I did. Probably very innocently made a mistake, but let's find out what's happening here. Now we're just going to skip this whole deal with the IF transformer I was tugging away on, and hopefully that's just fine the way it is. Nothing is shorted here. So the terminal clearance is very, very small in these guys here. Okay, and we're ready for another test. Goodness knows what's going to happen. Switch is on radio, antenna is connected, speaker is not on. That's next to nothing here. Speaker's on. Not quite. There we go. Okay. Now I think we're ready. Start this guy up. Let's see what happens. Volume's down, switch is on. Tools kind of out of the way. IF can clamp making a run for it, but I caught him on the way out the door. My cats would love to hockey this thing around to a spot where it can never be found again. They would love to do that. Okay. Yeah. Plug in. Get this out of the way. Power on, but keeping your eye on the dim bulb in the background there. Because I made a change. Normal operation there. Good. Volume up a bit. What will happen this time? Now that capacitor is involved with the audio output tube. Would that be responsible for all kinds of weird feedbacky stuff? I just don't think so. Well, I'm not sure we did much here. Let's see. Sounds a lot better. I don't hear all that screaming. Craziness. Just don't hear a station. But wow, that's a lot better. So I think that was my own personal. Much louder up here. It's my own personal mistake on this radio, I think. Let's see if we can get something back here. Oh, antenna, don't fall off. Stay connected. Okay, it's still connected. Nobody wants to show, but that's okay. I think we solved the craziness. It was my mistake with that capacitor. Well, so what was with the IF coil all that time? Well, there could be something else going on there. In fact, why don't we investigate right now? We'll poke it. How it is changing that capacitor could somehow fix this. Poke the IF. I have no idea. It seems to be a little bit of funny business here. Ooh. Careful, man. Okay, so we're probably just introducing shorts down here. That's probably what's going on. So let's not operate anymore. I tapped that thing. It didn't really seem to have that same wonkiness. Goodness knows what was going on there. I'm going to clamp this back in because I really don't want to take out an IF transformer. These can be a little hard to get them to clip. So what I'm doing is I'm holding the can very firmly to the chassis now. Push this guy in. Now we have to get it to clip. It clipped on that side. Will it clip on this side? And this is always the hard part. This is the second one. Maybe some kind of trick to this that I don't know. All I know is to push like crazy. Let me get a bigger, heavier duty screwdriver here. Yeah, always when you accidents involve 4 factors, 3 of which I can't recall anymore. But one of them is energy. And energy, anytime there's an accident, energy is involved. I ain't gonna push like crazy on this thing and build up a whole bunch of potential energy here, if you like to call it that. Danger. If this screwdriver slips, well, it'll be an interesting video, won't it? I don't think I can get in there very well. Let's try it like this. So you're pushing with a lot of pressure. It's not obvious what you're pushing on sometimes. You're pushing on all kinds of things you don't realize. You are pushing on. Oh, I heard it. I heard it. Okay. All worries aside. So we have the can connected back. We have the radio apparently working the way it should. I've done all the capacitors. Really should be working well. Or take that back. It may require some alignment effort. I put this can back on top and the hole, when you look in it, is just blocked by something. I don't know what. So I think we're probably going to have trouble with this again. Because, I mean, I can't... There's no access to the slug here. Sometimes you can get in and work these things into their proper position. Because it's come loose or something. I think I did it. Well, maybe not. Okay, we're going to operate the radio again and give it a good test here. And I'm going to give it some help. I'm going to give it antenna help. That's right. A little help from my outdoor antenna. Which I think is switched down to the shop right now. So this is just going to an outdoor antenna, and so the power of the outdoor antenna will end up in this loop. I just hold a loop near the radio's antenna. The radio will be really happy about that. That's what I'm hoping. Okay, here we go, power on. Station right there. No, that's not a station, that's interference. Still lots of oscillations in here. So what I think is happening right now, and I don't know for sure, but what I think is happening is the very powerful signal coming out of the IF, it's the amplified radio signal you're listening to, is somehow getting back into the front part of the IF and coming through again. So when the two frequencies, the IF frequency and the frequency the incoming signal has been converted to, when they are equal, exactly equal, you probably wouldn't notice anything. But as soon as they separate a little bit, so for instance, I tune the radio and now the target signal is no longer 455 but 456. It's 1,000 hertz separation between the signal we're interested in, the converted signal, and an oscillation at 455 that's going on in the IF. The reason you can't hear it when it's all alone is it's not modulated. So it could be there. We would see it on AVC voltage if I had it hooked up. But then when you bring the other signal in, as you tune it, of course, as you tune it, the target signal is being brought closer and closer to 455, and when you get within range, it'll start producing a different signal which is audible. Super heterodyne. Okay, so the super part means it's out of the range of your hearing. Did you know that? That's what the super part is. Supersonic is actually what it's called. Supersonic heterodyne radio, but nobody says the sonic part. That's where the super comes from. It's above your hearing. But not in this case. In this case, the mixing of these two signals is resulting in an audible signal. So that means there's an oscillation in the IF. And why would there be an oscillation in the IF? Getting back to the start, some capacitor somewhere not doing its thing again. Terrible distortion too. The good news is, except for this oscillation problem now, this radio is actually working well. It's picking up well, everything has come to life. I got to find another problem in it, another error. You know, okay, guilty. I probably made another error in there. And we got to find it. So, but I think that's it for today. I'm happy with the situation. I'm going to stop my work today at a happy point and get back to it tomorrow. We'll probably nail it all down tomorrow and tune it all up and be done, maybe, tomorrow. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you again.